Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. This time out, Don Carr and I are checking out the Positive Grid BIAS amp. Let's get started. The BIAS amplifier is an extremely powerful amplifier that allows you to design your own amplifiers to capture the tone of your favorite amplifiers and to download presets from the web. There are several different ways you can think about the BIAS amplifier. First of all, it's a standalone amplifier that you can plug right straight into your speaker cabinet. There are 25 presets on board that range from clean Fender-style amps up to metal-style amps. You can also think of it as a direct recording amplifier that you can connect straight into your interface in your DAW, or you can take it on stage and run it directly into your console and still get realistic amplifier tones. The third way to think about it involves amp matching. Now, this is a technology that allows you to capture the tone of your favorite amplifier loaded into the BIAS amp from the software and then use that on stage or in the studio. And fourth, you can think of it as a platform for basically getting the sound of any amplifier by downloading presets created by other users who've uploaded them to the ToneCloud on the web. So Don, we've been checking this amp out for about a week now, and I have to say it's really incredible.
It is, man. It sounds and feels really good.
Let's take a tour of the BIAS head. It's so close to a regular amplifier, just a few extra features, so it's very simple to learn, very simple to operate. On the upper left of the front panel is where we access our presets. We have 5 different categories: clean, glassy, blues, crunch, and metal. And then we have 5 models in each of those categories. The amp comes loaded out of the box with 25 presets, and we'll listen to a few of those in just a second. But you can view those amplifiers, what models are loaded, using a device connected by Bluetooth to the BIAS amp, or by connecting your computer using a USB cable. For this part of our demonstration, I've connected my iPad by Bluetooth to the BIAS head. I'm running the Positive Grid BIAS amp app inside my iPad, and you connect it by Bluetooth with one button press. Once you do that, your device is synced up with the BIAS amp, and as you make changes here or on the amplifier, they'll be reflected in both places. So what we're looking at on the iPad is a list of our presets here on the top, and this is the amplifier model that's currently loaded inside the BIAS head itself. When we change the preset to our second one, it'll change to a different amplifier, and so on. So we can see exactly what's happening. Now, there also is two-way communication with the knobs, so if I move the bass control, it's turning inside the app, and likewise, if I move a control inside the app, it'll be changed inside the amplifier. So let's listen to some of the presets that come loaded into the BIAS head. Don's playing a Gibson Custom 59 Les Paul Standard reissue, and we're playing the BIAS head through a Mesa Boogie 1x12 closed-back cabinet with a vintage 30 speaker. We've got an SM57 on it as our microphone. We'll begin in the clean category. Our first amplifier is one that Positive Grid calls a 76 RC120. It's basically a Jazz Chorus 120 without the effects. Our second preset is a British 900 clean, so basically a Marshall JCM 900 clean channel. Don? Keep in mind that what you're hearing here are the actual amplifiers that have been captured by Positive Grid and loaded in as models into the BIAS head. Moving to our glassy category, our first model is a 67 Blackface, basically a Fender Blackface combo. We also have a Vox style amplifier. This is a Top Boost 30. Our fourth model in this category is the clean channel from a 67 Dumble amplifier. Moving to our blues category, one of our presets is a Tweed EX, basically a Fender Tweed combo amplifier. Here's a JTM 45. In our crunch category, we're going to start getting into some of our classic rock tones. So our first model here is a Plexi 50 watt. Here's a JCM 800. A high watt. Our final category is metal. Here's where we're going to turn the gain way up. That's a 5150 Mark II. Our second preset in this category is called Tread Plate, and it recreates the sound of a Mesa Boogie triple rectifier. Here's a Mark II C+. Next up, we have a Soldano SLO. Keep in mind, what we're listening to are presets that come in the amplifier out of the box. So this is what you get when you open the box up, plug the amplifier straight in, and don't touch any of the other controls. Just select a preset. Now, we're not limited to just those sounds. We can load other presets in, but we can also dial in these presets. We have a gain control, bass, middle, treble, and presence. We have a vintage and modern switch for changing the response of the amplifier. Next up, we have a master volume control for driving the power amp section. And finally, we have an overall output control that sets the volume that's feeding into our speaker. One of the really great things about the BIAS amp software is we can get in and design our amplifier down to the finest detail. So we can look at the preamp section, we can choose the tubes we're using, we can look at the power amp section, we can bias the tubes, we can choose different types of power tubes, we can change the transformer, we can change the different cabinets, microphones that are used. We have so much control over what's happening inside the amplifier. You can really choose all the building blocks you want to design exactly the amplifier you want. Now, we don't have control over all those functions inside the amp head, but we do have control over the topology, changing it from single-ended or Class A design to a push-pull design and so on. Now, any of those sounds you create or that you tweak inside the BIAS amp software can be instantly loaded in using USB from your computer into the BIAS head, and then when you take it on stage, you've got that exact sound loaded up and it's available for your use. We also have control over the power amp response right here from the front panel of the BIAS head. We have a knob labeled power amp. If we turn that all the way down and start to bring it up, you hear the difference in the tone. Don, if you'll play for us. We also have a very simple to operate but very effective noise gate built in. If we turn that noise gate all the way down, you can hear that it shuts off and we've got noise coming out of the amplifier. By just turning up that knob a little bit until the noise silences, you can still play the guitar with natural response where the notes aren't cut off. Don, go ahead and play. Even when you turn the guitar down to a low volume level, the amplifier responds very naturally and the noise gate doesn't grab notes as they're sustaining.
I'm on about 7 here, by the way.
This also points out how dynamic the BIAS head is. It really responds naturally to your playing dynamics and how you're working with the articulations in your right hand.
Yeah, the response is really natural. There's no latency. I'm just playing like I would with any other amplifier.
Our final control on the front panel is a switch for engaging the cabinet simulator. Now, we've had it turned off so far. You've been hearing the sound of the amplifier through our Mesa Boogie cabinet. When we turn that switch on, you can feed the output from the back of the amplifier straight into your audio interface in your studio, or you could route it straight into your live sound console at the gig. So speaking of the back panel, there are a variety of different connections back there that make this a very versatile amplifier whether you're practicing at home, recording, or using it on stage. We've got a speaker output. The amplifier puts out 600 watts into 8 ohms or 300 watts into 16 ohms. There are no effects on board the BIAS head, but we do have stereo balanced XLR outs and stereo unbalanced quarter-inch outputs. We have Midi input, output, and through, so you can control this amplifier using a Midi foot controller, or you could control it from a computer that's running Midi software. There are 2 foot switches on the back, and those foot switches can be assigned to different presets, so you can instantly access those presets on the fly. One switch that's very useful on the back panel of the BIAS head is the series parallel switch. What this does is determine what the cabinet simulator is affecting. In the series mode, all of the outputs are affected by the cabinet simulator. In parallel mode, only the line level outputs are affected by the cabinet simulator, so you can drive a speaker cabinet on stage and still route the cabinet simulated output into your live sound console or into a studio recorder. Finally, the BIAS head does have an effects loop on the back. You can use this to connect either rack-mounted effects or pedal effects. In this case, we've got a TC Electronic Flashback X4 plugged in, and we're using it for delay. Don? The effects loop works great for post-preamp effects like delay, modulation effects like chorus, phase shifter, flanger, and for reverb effects as well. But you'll also want to be able to run effects into the front of the amplifier, overdrives, fuzzes, distortions, those types of things. To demonstrate how well that works with the bias head, we have a Wampler Tumnus overdrive. Don's going to demonstrate this for us. We're using the JC120 clean sound with a bit of delay from our TC delay that's in the effects loop. So here's our clean sound. Now we'll step on the Tumnus. You can hear the bias head works very well with pedals that are placed in front of the amplifier. Our Tumnus sounds great. But this is also true when we're using our crunch settings. So let's dial in one of our crunch sounds and listen to what the overdrive does in that situation. Here's our high watt crunch model without the overdrive running through our delay effect. Now we'll engage the overdrive. Just like everything else on the bias amp head, using an overdrive in front of our crunch, metal, clean sounds is very natural, just like a real amplifier. One of the things you're definitely going to want to check out when you have your bias head is the ToneCloud. Now this is a website that was created by Positive Grid where they've uploaded a whole bunch of different patches, a whole bunch of amp-matched amplifiers, and it's also available for users and artists to upload their sounds. There's a huge library of different amplifiers there. You can surely find the one that you're looking for, load it into your amp head, then use the controls on the front panel to tweak it to exactly the sound that you want. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Positive Grid bias head. It's an incredible amplifier that offers so many different tonal options. Don, we've been having a great time playing with this amplifier.
Oh man, I love it. I really do. I mean, I could totally see taking this on a gig with me.
Yeah, what I like about it is that it's very straightforward. You load the sounds that you want, you have 25 presets available, you can tweak them the way that you want, but they're real amplifier sounds that you could take and use on the stage.
Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of presence and there's plenty of punch with these amp sounds. I mean, they're great.
They're the real thing.
Yeah.
On behalf of Don, Carr, and myself, thanks for joining us for Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. Be sure to tune in next time. We'll have more guitars, more amps, more effects, and we'll be making lots of music. I'm Mitch Gallagher.